Hey, what's good, my people? I'm Ron Anderson, otherwise known as Ron a Tank, and I'm excited to sit here and have crucial conversations with a few guys that I consider my brothers. They are Brian Garrett, or BG, Delvin Morgan, or Dub, or Christopher Reese, better yet known as Mr. Reese. We live in a time in which our voice as a Black community is peaking. Due to a series of unfortunate events that led to the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and countless others, outbreaks across the globe have begun efforts to tackle racism and social inequality. As four young Black men, we wanted to leave our mark on society as we recognize and uplift our voices in our communities. Thus, we came with the idea of creating this podcast title called Watch Conversations. Its focus will be on the Black man, and we will have real and volatile conversations about the realities that come along with being a Black man. The Declaration of Independence is a topic that promises life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of all beings in the newly established United States. The U.S. Constitution's preamble suggests that this artifact will establish justice, promote general welfare, and protect the liberties mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. Inside of the Constitution are amendments that provide the rights of citizens in the United States of America. With that being said, it has been well documented of the crude and unjust mistreatment as it relates to the people of color, and more specifically, Black people. It is our fundamental belief that changes in our community starts with the evolution of the Black man. We must raise our young boys to become accountable and productive men, and in the same vein, we have to make certain that our men are sustaining accountability and productivity as they move through adulthood. In the wake of change, we decided that our first episode will focus on the 10 rules of a Black man to survive in America. I preface this conversation by saying that we are not experts, but we feel that we have experienced enough to speak on this matter and to share ideas we've processed. So the first episode is titled Me. Rule number 1, be an individual. BG, I kick it off to you.
Okay, just like Ron said, the reason why we're doing this is because we're living in unprecedented times. We're living in times where we're still fighting the same battles that we've always fought. We're fighting battles of equality. We're still fighting police brutality. We're still fighting the same battles that we've been fighting since we've been in this country. And like I said, these rules are just some things that we came up with, as a group, to try to help the Black man. The Black man is the hunted in this country. We're the hunted, whether we know it or not. We're dangerous just off of being. And, the first rule that we want to talk about that we came up with is, number 1, to be an individual. To be an individual, what that means to me, and I'll let these brothers, go on, their rant about, what they mean. To be an individual to me is that it's somebody that is going to go against the grain and be themselves. We live in a world where everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to look the same. Everybody wants to act the same. Everybody wants to dress the same. But in order to be successful, one of the tools that you must have in order to be successful is to be yourself and not afraid to be yourself. I know that, when you're younger, you want to fit in. I wanted to fit in. I think everybody wanted to fit in. I think most people want to, act like they fit into a group or, fit into society, any kind of way they can. But the key is to be an individual. The key is to be yourself, not afraid to be yourself, and, bring to the table what you bring to the table and not be scared to do that. What y'all think?
I agree completely. I think when most people look at us from outside of, we'll say, race and culture, that we're all monolithic, and that's not the truth. Just between us four, myself included, we're very much alike, but we're very much different. My background is a lot more different from you guys, and y'all are probably, you're the closest people to me. I think that when we think of Black people, I think we lump everybody, and just not from our group, from, optics, perceptions, assumptions. I've heard this about Black people. I've had this experience about Black people. I'm not the same as a person that you've had an experience with. Um, some views I agree with, some I vehemently disagree with. But if you look at me, I'm still Black. I'm still a Black man, and I think that we need to dispel that just because Black people all look alike, we don't operate the same. But I think the struggle and the issues that we face, not just recently, just since we've been here,
over the
have been
past since we
lumped,
came from Africa.
yeah, been generalized, um, stereotypical terms, themes, ideologies. Um, when you look at me, you think maybe all the bad things and not the good things, and not knowing that I may oppose to some of the things that you may oppose, and I may agree with some of the things you may agree with, but I am and will always will be for my people who look like me. I have a daughter who looks like me. I have a mother who looks like me. I have a grandmother, cousins, nieces, and nephews who look like me. I think we put so much emphasis on what we look like and less on what we think like.
Let me ask y'all a question. Has there ever been a time where you tried to be something other than yourself?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially in my younger days. When I was from middle school to high school, I really was trying to figure out who I was as a person, like most young people are. But I feel like to me, as an individual, that takes confidence. Um, you have to have a certain level of self-esteem, a certain level of confidence to be unapologetically yourself. And that's kind of one of the things I kind of love about this generation of kids is that no matter what you look at or how you look at them or what you say about them, they're gonna be themselves. And it doesn't mean that they're not smart. It doesn't mean that they won't grow up to be successful. But you see the baggy pants, you see the holes in the jeans, and you see the crazy t-shirts and the wild hair. That doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. So that's what I appreciate about this generation as far as being an individual. I think, like I said, it takes confidence. And that's something that over time, since were brought to this country, that has been one of the things that have been attacking the Black man, is taking our confidence away. Without our confidence, how can we be an individual? Without our confidence, we're searching for an identity. And I'll just kick this little quick story out real quick. Just like I said earlier, I spent middle school and high school trying to figure out who I was. But just to speak to the brotherhood, BG, I may have told you this, I may not, but brother, I'm finna give you your flowers right now. He helped me figure out who I was as a fat Black man. Let me just put it to you like that. So, because I always looked up to B, because he had the confidence to go talk to people. He could talk to girls. He talked to all the popular kids in school. And I was just like, man, he looked like me, but he has the confidence to do it. So that you kind of instilled that in me. So with this podcast and this whole movement that we're trying to get started, trying to instill confidence in the Black young male, I got mine from my friend, and that's why you are my brother. I mean, and I've taken things from each of you, and I've incorporated it into myself. So being an individual calls for us as Black men to be confident in ourselves, unapologetic about it.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's amazing that you think that way. I never knew that. Just a quick story, before we go to the second point. A time when I was trying not to be myself. I remember it was maybe 9th or 10th grade, and all of us, we went to school in the 90s, right? And we're talking about the epicenter of gangster rap. This is when gangster rap was real gangster rap, not this now. It was real gangster rap, right? So I'm trying to kick it to this girl. I'm trying to talk to this chick, and I'm trying to be what I think she wants me to be. So I finally get her. I'm trying to talk to her, for I don't know how many months. And I finally, get the number, and she finally agrees. Okay, we're gonna go together. That's what you do when you 19th grade. You going together. So I get my mom's, and I say, Mom, all right, we gotta go to the store. All right, let's go. We need to go to Walmart so I can get some white T-shirts, and then we're going to what's the name of that store? Levine's. We're gonna go to Levine's, and I'm gonna get some khakis. Right? So I go get white T-shirts and khakis, and I'm trying to be, as hard as I can possibly be, and everybody
my
who
white
knows,
tee, cuz.
exactly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to be something that I'm not, right? And it's not coming off to her. It's not coming off to my friends. It's not coming off to people who know me, right? Because anybody who knows me know I rock, polos, I rock J's, I do me. You know what I'm saying?
I borrowed many of your clothes, sir.
Exactly. So, but like you said, confidence is something that I really struggle with. And when you struggle with confidence, you'll try to attach yourself to what you think people want you to be, to what other people want you to be, instead of who you are really. You know what I'm saying? And it takes time for you to grasp that. But the chick ended up leaving me in like 2 days, right? Because and part of that is because I wasn't being myself. It wasn't gonna last no way. It wasn't gonna last anyway.
Right. Ron, what do you think? What do you think the most important of being an individual, man?
I think you guys covered it all. And what I was in here thinking about was, how does this all process into manhood as you mature and as you leave those adolescent years behind? But I think it still walks in that bubble of confidence. I'm a big guy on perception. I was raised that way, just kind of following in my grandmother's footsteps. And a lot of times you fall into the traps of what other people want you to be. And ultimately, you have to kind of break that. And it goes back to exactly what you said, Reese, about being brought over here in the very first place. The type of stereotypes and monikers that were given to us, which is the reason why we are always grouped together. And for Dub to say that we're not monolithic, people think of us that way because of how we're unable to break out of these boxes, if you will. So confidence is everything. The confidence to say, nah, this is not for me. I'm going this other direction. The confidence to say that this is how I'm going to think and no one can do anything about it. The confidence to dress a certain type of way. The confidence to be the person you want to be. That's what it all breaks down into. And so as we all move forward with children of our own, nephews, sons, friends, whatever the case may be, I think the best thing we can do is instill confidence in them that they can be exactly what they want to be. And you don't have to be afraid that you don't fit into a mold because what society has deemed to be acceptable.
And another thing it takes is courage, right? It takes courage to be yourself. Like, when you're in your adolescent years and you're trying to find it, every school, you got pretty much your same group of people, right? You got your cool kids, the popular people. You got your athletes. You got your thugs. You know what I'm saying? You got your nerds. Like you have those specific groups of people. Well, somebody like me, I didn't fit into either one of them. Right? I didn't fit. I see the face that you're making. I didn't fit into either one of them.
He was a cool kid. Don't let him.
No, I wasn't. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true at all. I wasn't a nerd. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a thug. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't any of that. I was just me, and I just kind of looked at myself as a misfit. But you have to. It takes courage to be yourself. And after like I said, after Old Girl, I just went right back to my polos and my job. Like, well, that didn't work out. I guess it didn't work. Ain't nobody else gonna do it. You know,
Bun B
Hey,
said probably one of the realest things. He said, "Man, you're just your mother's child."
you
at the end
just
of the
your
day.
mama's baby. That's it.
Hey, but let me add something else to being an individual. And we talked about courage, we talked about confidence, we talked about, just walking in your own skin and being okay with it. But just know this. When you get to that mindset that you're going to be an individual and you no longer you take society's thoughts of you with a grain of salt, you're going to lose friends. And those friends that you lose are not really your friends. Because your friends they're going to accept you for who you are. I accept Ron for who he is, B, Dub. That's what makes this a friendship that has lasted over 20 years because we accept each other for who we are and we don't make the other person feel bad for whatever successes or mistakes they made. We're all individuals and I love all the individuality.
If you're catering to the crowd, man, are you playing the long or the short term game? I think the reason that you guys are still my friends and my brothers are because you had an opportunity to watch me go through phases. I wasn't the same kid at 15 as I was at 17, 18, and the same kid, and I say kid emphatically because I think you're still a kid at 20, 21, 22. I think you're a kid at 23, 24. I don't think maturation has anything to do with age. It has more from a mindset perspective. Since we've been friends, there have been times where, I know you're in my corner, but then there are also times where it's just like, hey, bro, yeah, that's not what's happening.
So
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Gotta definitely do it for yourself and not for anybody else. If you live for the cheers, you'll die by the booze. What's the second point? What we got, Ron?
So, I mean, y'all guys walked right into it, right? So, being the individual, being completely confident, having necessary courage, but then you got to be honest with yourself and then others. And before we jump into it, I'm always going to go back to this old adage this wise man once told me: "You can lie to me, but you got to."
Wait, say what
And
now? I didn't
the
hear the
man,
last
that
part.
boy is sitting right on this Zoom call. I can tell you exactly what he told me.
Hey, you can lie
Lie
to
to me.
me, but you have to be real with yourself. I'll let you boys expound.
Hey, man, it's real. It's real. The worst person you can lie to is yourself. And I meant it then. I was probably ignorant then and didn't know how real what it was I was saying then. But you better be honest with yourself, because to lie to yourself it can have catastrophic consequences. Catastrophic consequences. Not looking at a situation for what it is, trying to twist it into something else. Trash. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. I'm not telling you something I heard. I'm telling you what I know. It's not going to work out.
So let me ask you this question.
What?
Well, so we talk about taking the situations in life for what they are. Can you speak to the difference of trying to create this thought about who you desire to be and then having those two images become, a reality for yourself? Because I think people oftentimes are here in reality, but they would like to move the needle forward. But you do have to accept where you are in the beginning. So how do those two things come together?
I think you have, when you say be honest with yourself, it's not being honest in what you see yourself as. Being honest with yourself means being honest with what you have, what you've been through, how you see things right now. I think we miss the now, and we get tunnel vision, which, I mean, that's fine. That's okay. It's human nature. I want to be this, so I'll frame myself to try to be what I am down the line. But am I okay with the man that I am now? Can I look myself in the mirror every day and say, even though I'm not on that goal that I set for myself, just day by day, right now, being inferior, being unaccomplished, being uneducated by whatever means that is, being myself in my current self in the present, am I okay with that? And I think that kind of speaks to you know, it's not necessarily your past, but it could be your past and what you've changed about yourself to get to this point, instead of projecting what it is you want. Because when you start projecting what it is that you want to be, you're missing the now, and you're missing the lesson in being, I'll speak for myself, moving to the Metroplex, being in a 480 square foot apartment and hating every bit of it, but not recognizing that I took the steps to get out my mama's house and be independent, and not having to worry about, you know, her rules and the things that they say, hey man, if you're gonna live here, this is what you gotta do. Um, Celebrating, hey man, I could have still been right there in comfort, but it's not my ideal, it wasn't my goal. And things with college didn't necessarily work out, but I got myself to this point. Can I be real with that person, as opposed to, you know, all right, well, I'm just gonna look at myself 4 years down the line. I think it should be an aspiration, but I think you should very well also be real with the situation that you have around you right now, how you got there, the decision you made. Hold yourself accountable and say, all right, this is where I am, but this is not where I'm going to end up.
Right.
And just
And you know, just to kind of bounce, just to kind of piggyback off of what Dove said, I think it's about being honest with yourself about who you are right now. Like I can take myself, one of the things that I want to be, that I want to accomplish in my life is financial freedom. But the truth is that I've made poor financial decisions, and it's gotten me to where I am right now. You know, I haven't saved money the way I'm supposed to, and I need to discipline myself more on spending. That's what the truth is.
Sure.
Right? So I have to be honest with myself. I want to be, my aspiration is to have X amount of money or whatever it is, whatever you want to do in life. So I think what it is being honest with yourself about who you are, and the ugly truth, not the stuff that, you know, not the, you know, the thinking, the thinking with the rose, looking at yourself with the rose colored glasses, being honest with yourself, saying, hey, this is where I want to be, but the reason I'm not there is because of something that I'm doing. Being honest with yourself and having the courage to make the necessary changes in order to get to wherever it is that you want to be. So if I want to be financially free, what I have to do, quit loading up them credit cards, right? So being honest with yourself about where you are currently while trying to attain wherever it is that you're trying to get to.
And just to piggyback on that, man, just off Dub and BG's point, this all happens in phases. I mean, the quicker you learn that being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror, understanding the good, the bad, and the ugly, like BG alluded to, that happens multiple times over your life. And the one thing that I think a lot of people get frustrated with is the fact that it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, it's a grind to really look within yourself and be who you are. You just don't wake up one day like, oh, I'm me, you know.
It's a lifelong
Back
journey.
in, I'm not the same person in 98, 2008, 2018, hell, yesterday. So just remembering, you know, as a young black man, being honest with yourself is key, but just understand that that happens over time in multiple phases. And sometimes the stuff that you see is not what you want to see. But the key to that is once you see who you really are, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to change, or are you going to stay in that box? Are you going to evolve, or are you going to stay where you at? Because people who are stagnant don't move very far in life. But once you understand who you are, I'm not saying it's going to be a smooth road going into the future, but at least you have that on your side, the truth about who you are, what you want to do in that moment. Because in 2007 or in 2006, I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer. But lo and behold, by accident, I got into education. So just knowing and being honest with what you want at that moment, seeing and just having that clear view, that clear vision to see where I want to go with what I am.
And another thing is, man, it's like life will reveal who you are. You know, when tough times come, when hard times come, like, man, like those times are gonna show you who you really are. And sometimes it's really tough to face that. I faced that. I think everybody has faced that in their own life, but you know, and sometimes it can be really hard to face. It can be really hard to face. It's sobering, it's humbling, you know, like when really tough times come and you see exactly who you are, because it's easy to sit and be like, oh, okay, you know, if this happened, I'm gonna react this way. You don't have a clue, right? You don't know,
See you in that
you don't
moment.
know, you don't know how you're gonna react. You don't know what you got until something, till you have to deal with something. That's
There's
when you know that's when you know what you have.
there,
And once that hits, and once you know what you have and what you don't have, you then you can be like, okay, you know, I need to do some work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But what you got? What you
totally.
got, OG?
there's a saying real quick to piggyback off you real quick. They said kings are built in chaos and crisis, not comfort.
Well, yeah, for sure, man. And ultimately, I think everybody's hit the points right as they are. You have to just acknowledge your shortcomings. I think that's the biggest part of it all, because I think in doing that, that's how you pick yourself up, so that you're not stuck in that pity party for too long, and then you can put together a legit plan for yourself to get out of that dump. So I mean, it all comes back to just being able to look at that man in the mirror and say, hey, this is exactly who I am, where I am, why I am here. And as you all have said, that's all the time. To be honest, it can be from year to year. It can be every 4 to 5 years. I mean, those times come and go. So that's what it is. Uh, this kind of walks right into our next point. And when you're having these types of moments, it's important that you're able to process thoroughly through these types of issues. So our next rule is to seek mental health. Why is it important for a Black man to seek mental health?
I'll kick this one off because mental health is so important in the Black community, and there's a stigma that if you're if you're going through something mentally, something not right with you, or something's wrong. But what Black people, I'm not even gonna just Black men, just Black people altogether, we were bred with PTSD in our veins. Okay, bringing us over in those ships in Africa, going through 400 years of slavery, 50 years of Jim Crow, and still going through it right now. We have all within us some type of PSD. And I'll give you an example. When you get pulled over by the police officer, what are you feeling? Because I just got pulled over Sunday. I get nervous. I sweat. I start talking extra white because I don't want to alert this officer to that I could possibly be some type of thug on the run. All these things, my heart's racing. All these things are going through my mind. Oh, and let me finish this point that I get to you.
Gotcha. I just want to make
All,
sure the point that you talking extra proper, not white.
okay, sorry, proper. Um,
Appreciate you.
but all those things are going through my mind when I'm getting pulled over, and that's because we all know a lot of the outcomes for Black men and women when they get pulled over by the police aren't always favorable, i.e., George Floyd, and many others have been pulled over, Philando Castile,
Yeah.
all of those guys. You know what I'm saying? So that's a form of PTSD. Now, imagine your ancestors being in slavery for hundreds of years and being broken down to nothing and being built up as a mindless workhorse. Okay. And we've been through that for 400 years. So all that, it slides into our psyche as time goes on. We see images on TV and I saw a post on Facebook talking about defund media. That's bullcrap. We see all these images, especially now because we're in the right now era. We're in the social media era, and we see it live when it's happening. Hell, I think Philando Castile was a live Facebook feed, wasn't it?
It was.
So we live in a society when we see these images, and it low key, it strikes fear in us. So when we react in certain situations, or when we get around, or we get in a certain point in our lives that's low, we don't know how to properly get ourselves out of that. And instead of climbing out of that hole of poor mental health, we wallow in it. So it's very important that as Black men, we can't have that stigma of we can't talk to nobody, we can't seek help from anybody. I've talked to all three of you guys about personal situations that you've been going through. And that's healthy. That's healthy to talk about what we're going through. We try to keep it inside. Oh, it's not our fathers, maybe not our fathers in particular, but our generation, our fathers' generations were taught to be real men, don't cry, hold it in. Exactly. So that's really not good advice. Okay. We need outlets, healthy outlets to release and talk about issues that are on our hearts, especially if, just say you're a single man. Who are you going to talk to? Like, you don't have a wife to talk to, and you can talk to your mom. If you got a mom who's on it like that and who understands what you're going through and stuff like that, that's great. But I know I can't talk to my mom about mental health because you know what she's going to say? Go pray about it. That's not helping me. Like, I need some advice. Like, tell me, why am I feeling like this? What am I going through? You know what I mean? And I'll let somebody kick it.
Dude.
I'll I'll speak for myself, man. Somebody who's not done the best job keeping up with. Well, I ain't say the best job keeping up with my mental health, but as far as seeking counsel outside of you guys, outside of my family, I've been to therapy. I've been admitted to psychiatric counseling. Admitted, like not, you know. Well, I've admitted myself, but then I've had situations where like, no, you're gonna go.
That's real.
It's hard to tell a kid, and I'll speak from my 27-year-old self. It's hard to tell a kid because at the end, I was a grown man, paying my own bills, doing my own thing, but I still had a mind of a kid. It's hard to tell a kid that this is what you need to do, and we're gonna push you to do it without context, without nuance, without putting or thinking how he thinks. I went through a very traumatic experience when I was 27, and it wasn't that I went to go seek help. They were like, "Listen, man, if you want to go back to work, this is what you got to do." And B, you bear witness to a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? It was bad. I was probably the most darkest times of my life, and I didn't have a choice. It wasn't like you told me. It wasn't like I told myself. Like, man, listen, you want to go back to work, you gotta go do X, Y, and Z. It's hard to tell a kid that I see something that you might need help with, and I think this is what the course you need to take, and not put yourself in his shoes. I think it's real easy for us to say, man, that boy crazy. I'm not crazy. I wasn't crazy when I went. Just had, you know what I'm saying? Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. I'll get in all kinds of trouble and reacting. I was more reactionary than background. I've seen kids who have backgrounds who set them back, and they needed help when they were 7 or 8. I didn't need help when I was 7 or 8. I need help when I was 18, 19. I may have needed help in that moment, but there's some kids who have been needing help for a long time, and it's hard for me to say, well, son, now that you're 23, 24, 25, you need to go get some therapy. yeah, that's a parent, but can I put myself in your situation and say, well, maybe he's not mature enough. Maybe he's not. Maybe the things that he's gone through has changed his trajectory so much to where he thinks that, man, therapy ain't gonna do nothing but slow me down, or I've been dealing with this for so long by myself. What the hell I need a therapist for? A lot of finger pointing goes on. I won't say within my family or myself, because I had y'all, I had my family that were fully supportive, but I watch people and say, man, you need to go get help, but nobody's supporting you and saying, hey, man, let me stop my day. Let me stop what I got going on. Let me stop my judgment. Let me stop my perception of you and say, man, what happened? Why are you like this? How come you got to this point? Let's just go to therapy. Okay, well, I can go, but if I need to be in therapy, that means I need some help. I need some support. Be it, maybe I don't have it from my parents. Maybe I don't have it from my family. Maybe I don't have it from my friends. How do you tell a kid who is who doesn't have a support system to say, all right, well, therapy is going to heal you? How? Because you don't know what that kid has to live with. Even if you go to therapy, I've been to therapy, I've been admitted, literally admitted. And I'm like, okay, I'm not these people, which helped
So
me
let me
figure that
Well,
out. Go ahead, bro.
no, I was just saying, like, I think the reason why that is because, therapy has been so taboo in the Black community. I have been to therapy myself a couple of different times, and I remember my therapist saying day one that she was glad to see me because so many Black men don't come to therapy. And just to kind of back up, I mean, I look at it just more of on a surface level. um, it's hard enough just being a man. All right, let's just take it there on a surface level. You're talking about, if you're married, you have your wife, you have kids, you have, your bills, your responsibility, and you're taking on more and more. And on top of that, you're dealing with society. You're going out in the world. You're trying to do this and that. All of those things compound on you, and it's hard. And men, the majority of the time, we suffer in silence, right? Because it's, big boys don't cry. It's suck it up. It's, that whole thing. So we suffer in silence. We have all of these thoughts going on in our heads. We're dealing with all of these things. We're dealing with all these different kinds of pressures. We're getting older, and what ends up happening is that we suffer in silence, and then we start to self-medicate, right? We start to
I was just about to
self-medicate
say that. Yeah.
with our own substances and dealing with it how, the best way that we know how. But I think as time has gone on, I think it's a little less taboo to go get counseling, to go to a therapist, to go to a minister, a psychologist, whoever, excuse me, and just get those things out, right? And get somebody who can help you. There's a lot of people out there who just won't go talk to somebody who's going around and carrying all this thing, and sooner or later it's gonna pop. Sooner or later it's gonna bust. So I think that's the best reason to go and get your mental health check and keep up with your mental health. Because if you're not right up here, then, if you're not right physically and mentally, right, then you're not going to be any good for anybody else.
Mhm.
So, and Black people, we have such a different, Black people have a different experience than everybody else in this country, right? Like somebody asked, you know, what do you feel when the police are behind you? Well, me as a Black man, I'm not worried about getting a ticket. I'm worried about trying to survive it, right? That's stress in and of itself. So, I mean, take care of yourself. If you need to go talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. There's no shame in it. There's nothing to look down on, right? If you need help, you need help. And there's a lot of people out there that need help and don't know it, and are not getting it.
Hey,
OG?
B, can I ask you a question?
What's happening?
Um, who taught you about therapy?
Um, nobody really. I mean, I got a couple of people in my family that went, but I mean, I never really cared about what other people thought, right? It was me, going through things as I get older and things, being on me. I had some things and, still have some things that I'm dealing with. And I don't really care about the stigma because it's me dealing with it, right? It's me, it's my life. And I really kind of didn't care about, what people thought of it. So, and sometimes you need somewhere to go to tell the truth because a lot of times we don't tell the truth, right? We
That's a
tell
fact.
part of it,
Yeah.
tell the part that's kind of palatable,
Yeah.
but in therapy you get to go and tell the ugly truth, like the real stuff, the things you don't, the real things that you have to face, that you carry, that don't nobody else know.
Or better yet, the real things that you don't say and you don't express, and
How you really feel,
and
not
have
how
what
not how you're supposed to feel, not how
I
how really you, the ugly,
let me ask you a
Because
question.
dark stuff, the stuff that you carry.
We're and Reese, we'll get right to you. But when was your and I'll tell you mine. If there's any confusion, when was your first therapy session?
My first therapy session was what's this, 2020. My first therapy session was like late 2018,
And
mid
you are
late
how
2018. I
you
was, what am I now? 30, I was 35,
35,
35, 36.
which kind of goes to my point. I think that, and I understand certain circumstances, man. When I was going to therapy, it cost money. I've been literally admitted, like it wasn't a choice for me in order for me to go back to work. Like you're gonna have to go through this because we think something might be. And I won't get too far into what happened. B, Ron, Reese, Um, they just want to make sure I wasn't, off the handles, which I wasn't. It was just traumatic experience in my life. That was in 2018 for you. For me, at the time, it was in 2009. By that time, I'm 20. Let's see, that's what, 11 years ago. I'm 26, 27. There's a whole 26-year gap in between being able to tell my whole truth, being able to speak my, excuse me,
Bless
excuse me,
you. Bless you.
speak my mind, to tell my truth and be honest, and not only be honest, not be judged for my honesty and being transparent. Like I'm not making this stuff up, people. I'm like, this is how I see the world. Details may be skewed. In my case, that wasn't the case because everything that's happened to me is it's almost like a tattoo on my chest. I remember everything, and I've allowed people. What's up, nephew? I've allowed people to correct me if I wasn't right in my assessment of what happened, be it my parents, my mother and my father, my brothers and my sisters, cousins, uncles, or whoever the case may be. I got that treatment at 26, 27. What's your message to a kid who's 11, 12, 13, 14 who needs it? I think at that time, I think I needed therapy. I won't get too far into my
well,
family
at
structure.
11, 12, and 13, that's where whoever your mom, dad, that's kind of going to be a more of
But it's
their decision,
but
and they're
but
more of
if it's
awareness
up
to them.
to if it's up to mom and dad's decision still doesn't offset the truth that I'm experiencing. So I may need it, and my mom may say, "Nah, you're fine, you're cool, you're good," and there's no
Which is
way.
what most black parents do.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, and I'm gonna throw it to Black parents. I think sometimes it's just like, all right, well, nah, you fine, you cool, but if I needed it 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and whatever, and you tell me, no, I'm fine, and I'm not, then you're delaying the process.
So,
And go ahead, bro.
so I think this is, and you know, being in the educational system, you kind of see it more times than not. But I think what this all gets around to is the fact that we as Black men have to take the opportunity to seek mental health even before we have children of our own, before we begin to
Mm-hmm.
give um, certain pieces of advice and so forth, so on. You know, I think that, and I just go back, I'll use my example of not having a present father. You don't know that it affects you until you get to a point. And I'll never forget that point. You know, we're all graduating. B has a dinner at the crib. Your pops is there, Reese. Your pops is there, Dub, and I'm sitting there. And it's not that either any one of those guys have never taken the opportunity to sit down and be like, young dude, this is what this is. But it's the fact that you just don't have. And so even as early as 8, 7, 6, whatever, the opportunity to go and speak to someone and say, hey man, how does it make you feel? Even if your answer is, it doesn't make me feel any type of way right now. So I think it's about being comfortable enough as a parent to push out the narrative that we need to go and talk to people, just because it's no different than saying, hey man, you my son, here go this football. Hey man, you my son, let's go shoot guns. Hey man, you're my son, let's do this A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. I think that as someone said, you know, there are financial ramifications that go along with seeking mental health. And all I can say is, for those that can, definitely do. You know, my son Mason has this notion that I put a lot of pressure on him, and I can admit that I do, especially in the times in which he's being raised in and he's going to be an adult in, and so forth, so on. There's very little room for margin. But even in that, how does that make you feel? And even when I ask those questions, his responses to me are, I'm okay.
Well,
But
the thing is, we have to keep asking,
we do.
because our generation of parents, or our parents' generation,
There you go.
it's not
Well
going to
put.
happen with them. It's not
Well
going to
put.
happen with them because of how they were raised. This
Well,
starts with us. This starts with our generation. We have to start instilling confidence in our kids. Keep asking them, even if you say, oh, I'm good. But the fact that you asked him how he feels and how he's doing, that sits in. Dub, you had said something earlier, and that's what made me think of that point. If you're 11, 12, 13, 9, 8, whatever, how old you are, and you go to your parents as you described earlier, and they say, oh, you be all right, you don't need counseling. That makes you internally feel like, oh, um, either they don't care about how I'm feeling,
Man.
they don't understand how I'm feeling, or, you know, it's a disconnect.
and
Let,
and
let me let me shoot him some bail real quick, right? My parents are, you know, they're all right. My dad, right? My dad was born in the 40s. My dad's 70 years old, right? And that's the point I'm getting to, is that that's just not something that they did. So if I was feeling a way, I can't, looking at it now as a grown man, I can't just go, and I'm not saying that y'all are doing this, but I can't blame my parents for not doing that, like, you know, when I needed it, because when you're a parent, the only thing that you're doing is drawing from you,
Your
you're
experience.
drawing from what you have. Somebody
Right,
can't give you what they don't have.
right,
So if you have a parent who wasn't grown, who wasn't around somebody who was affectionate and told you that they loved you all the time, you can't be mad at them because they don't do that to you, because they don't have that to draw from. You can't expect something from people that they don't have to give. So my dad, growing up in the 50s and 60s, right? That's not something that they did. So if I'm feeling away, I mean, he may ask me something, or he may say, hey, what's going on? But going to counseling and all that, that's just not something that they did. And I can't blame you for trying to draw from something that you don't have there to give. So
Right.
because I mean, parenting don't come with the manual, and I'll judge myself really hard on the kids that I have, but you can't give what you don't have to give, I guess, is what my point is.
Yeah.
And just to go ahead and it's not, it's just, it starts with us. That's why I said it starts with our generation, because we're knowledgeable and cognizant of that deficiency within our community. So not just like BG said, don't blame the parents because they were equipped with the tools and they used the tools that they were given. But now we have a different toolbox, and it's a little bit bigger and it's more expanded. So that's why I say it starts with our generation and really kind of making sure that our Black boys are mentally strong. Uh, our little girls have confidence in themselves, our little Black girls. And then from there, it changes a cultural bias against going to getting counseling. And I'll admit, I've had counseling. I've had marriage counseling when I was with my first wife. We went and sought marriage counseling, and I was nervous about it. I was scared about it. And then again, not too long ago, I sought out counseling within my school district. If you work for the school district, they offer you free sessions. And most jobs with insurance, they'll offer you a certain amount of free sessions. And then whether your insurance kick in and pay, you pay the copay. Or if you don't have insurance, sometimes, well, I have to ask my wife, she's more well versed, but Medicaid will pay for it. If you don't have insurance, Medicaid will kick it in. You just have to find the right person. But go ahead.
No, I don't want to spend too much time on this topic because I know we got to move to something else. I think that how do you tell it? I come from a mental perspective as not saying me personally. My parents were my mother and both father are very open. Said, son, if you need help, we'll help you. But I'm speaking more to kids who need the help and the parent recognition is not there because I went through a very traumatic experience at say 11, and I didn't, not to say that the tools weren't there. I didn't understand it because I'm 11.
Most 11-year-olds don't understand much about themselves.
Yeah.
I will go to say
Other
18,
that their penises are getting hard and they don't know why.
21. How do you tell okay, so we'll take 11 years old out the equation. What do you tell a 19-year-old who has a very limited scope of the world that, hey, you need counseling? Or not to say that you tell him, but how do you make the space available?
Action.
Well, it's action for the parents, but how do you tell that young man or young lady?
So are you speaking from you are the person trying to speak to this young man?
No, I'm speaking from the child's perspective. So if there's a child who's had something traumatic happen to them, by nature and by whatever trauma, they're not gonna come out right and say, "Mommy and Daddy put me in therapy because I got some." They're gonna hide it. So
it's up to the
how do
parents
we?
to recognize that, and
That's the first line of defense is your parents. They have to recognize that.
make a decision that, hey, this is what we're going to do.
And schools are the second line of defense.
So
To be honest.
So and let's just be honest. We ain't gotta be honest, but in the Black community in itself, because I don't want to make it black and white. We'll say poverty lines from lower middle class to higher middle class. What if your resources are limited? And I'll speak to the lower middle class. So what if your resources are limited? You're on WIC. You're getting food stamps.
You get Medicaid?
You're wage job. You have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 kids or whatever the case may be. You have a child who may be undeveloped, who has experienced some traumatic. The child's not gonna go. I mean, there are some cases where a child will say, "Hey, mama, yeah, I got X, Y, and Z going on." But what do you tell the child who's in silence? Because B, you made a very, very valid point. Men suffer in silence, but there are also little boys who haven't become men who suffer in silence. What do you speak to that young man?
You just reach out and connect with them. I mean, that's all you can do.
First, you have to recognize it, right? I mean, and I think that sometimes you can miss the mark. And I'll go, I'll tell this really quick, and because I know OG, we gotta get to it.
We're good.
Yeah.
My parents had a lot on their plate when I was growing up. I'm the last of 4, right? My folks had me at a time to where their careers were jumping off. My dad, he had his businesses that he was trying to buy. He had his ministry that was jumping off. He put a lot of time into that. My mother was working for a bank, and she was traveling and doing all of that. So I spent a lot of time with one parent or the other just because of the way life was set up, right? So when you have things like that, when parents got other things going on, and it's through no fault of their own. I'm not saying that parents ignore their kids on purpose. I mean, some do. But, when you got life going on, and I think about myself, I got bills, and I got this COVID-19 thing that's going on, and my job has told me that, hey, we're thinking about doing layoffs, and I'm thinking about, okay, what kind of income can I come in? And you have all of these adult things that you're dealing with, right? And you have your own mental things that you're dealing with. It's not hard to miss the silent child. Am I get, because you have a whole lot going on. And that's why I say, the older that I get, the less I judge parenting, because, it's so easy to miss that. Because you have so much going on and so much that you're trying to do. You could be so busy trying to feed them and raise them that you miss, what's going on with them internally. But OG, I know we gotta get to.
Great point.
Well, I saw Reese had one more quick point. Reese, go ahead and get that point out.
Well, Dub say, what do you say to this kid? Well, I'm going to speak to you as that silent child. Okay. I spent a lot of time by myself. My parents weren't together. My mom worked 2 jobs. My dad worked 10, 12-hour graveyard shift, third shift. I spent a lot of time by myself. And like B said, no fault of my parents, they were busy trying to provide. That left me to my own thoughts. And I am an introvert. So I already don't talk. Now, I don't have nobody to talk to. I don't have nobody to check in. How you doing? How was your day? Man, to be honest, I didn't get used to that till I got with Corinth. Like, why you keep asking me how I'm doing? I'm fine. Like, why you keep asking? But that's just how it's supposed to be. When you love someone and you with someone, you check on them. You see how they doing. And I had to get used to that. But just to talk to you as the silent kid or the child that doesn't say much, man, support system. Y'all, for me personally, y'all were integral for me growing up. Okay. And I spoke about BG earlier, but all 3 of y'all had a role in helping me get through stuff, and you didn't even know it. And you didn't even know it. Sometimes it's not the exact issue needs to be addressed. Sometimes you just need to be around people to make you feel good. People that's in your corner, that's your boys, your partners, your brothers, sisters, whoever that support system is, and it goes to just a support system. Your support system does not have to be your biological blood. And for me, because that's how I was raised and that's how I grew up, I spent a lot of time at Ron crib. I spent a lot of time at BG crib. I spent a lot of time at Doug crib. I was never at home. y'all never came to my house. Well, y'all did kind of a little bit, but y'all never came to my house because there's nothing there. Like, I want to go, I need to get out of this silence and go be around some like-minded individuals that's going to lift my spirits. And if you can have that certain type of support system, it can help you in your younger years, but there will come a time as an adult you're going to have to kind of face it.
Go ahead, OG.
Well, I definitely want to put a pin on it. I think one of the biggest things that was definitely said by each piece was that how do we recognize that in our youth? As BG said, we can't fault our parents because it's not something they are accustomed to based on how they were brought up. But even then, I want to drive home something that Reese said. It is now our turn. We have a bigger toolbox, and so if we're able to seek mental health, that we provide ourselves, not only ourselves, but those closest to us, especially our children, with the avenue of being able to speak with someone, especially at a young age, so that they get comfortable enough to then pass a tradition going forward. So we definitely would do that there. Our fourth rule, I won't say last, our fourth rule is defending yourself. And I know Reese's was a big one for you, so I'm gonna let you kick us off. What do you mean when you say defend yourself?
Well, defend yourself as a black man, young black man, middle-aged black man, old black man. BG said something in the first rule: we're hunted. We are under attack, and we always have been. We've been treated as property. We've been treated as tools and utensils. So now, when we're in this age of systemic racism and systemic oppression, it's important that as black men, we defend our integrity, we defend our morals, defend your melanin, defend who you are against society, corporate America, whether you're in school, other kids. And it doesn't have to be in an aggressive way, because defending yourself, it takes being an individual, it takes being honest, and it takes seeking mental health to really have the tools to defend yourself against whoever's trying to come at you. And we can't be afraid to do it.
Correct.
I think part of our history and instilling that PTSD into our genes as black people is fear. When you're afraid, you're either going to, what is it called? Fight or flight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we've been oppressed and we've been intimidated for all these years, and we've seen these videos of how we get done, it's more likely that, and we'll speak to our parents' generation, that we were taught to, and we had the civil rights movement, but as a whole, I think we were still bred to be fearful and not stand up for ourselves as men, people, and a race. And that's one of the things that I'll say this, I think I've said this before, and that's why I love this generation for jumping all this off, because they don't have any fear and they will go and defend you, me, and they even got Johnny, little white kid from around the street, defending us too. So defending ourselves is very important. Understanding that as a black man, you're naturally under attack, and like you said, Ron, we don't have much room for error.
Right.
So in these corporate Americas, not even corporate America, if we in these jobs and in our household, we just need to have the confidence to just speak up and say, "Hey, I am a man. Do not disrespect me, and I will reciprocate the same respect you
Duh.
Honestly,
give."
I think it kind of starts in your neighborhood, man. When I say defend myself, as it has nothing to do with physicalities. I think it's the mentality of where you are. And it's hard for a young kid. It's hard to tell like I said, 11, 12, 13-year-old to defend your thoughts, your beliefs, your character, your integrity. Before you get to racism, before you get out to the world, before you get out to cops, you have the neighborhood first. There are going to be people who are going to ridicule you for whatever reason. I can speak to that because I grew up in a neighborhood predominantly Black. People who look like me, I think when I think of my family, we weren't in those same circumstances because we I'm not gonna say better, but just different mind frames. But yeah, I was
Y'all didn't
you
have
smart.
hood mentality. Just because you was in the hood
Yeah,
didn't mean like
you smart, you cool. I think the best thing that ever happened to me in the neighborhood was sports because it leveraged a point of physicality. Like I'm playing basketball, football, track, or whatever. I'm like, I'm just as fast as you are. I'm just as quick as you are. I can play all that, but I can still go to class and do my thing in the same circumstances. So if I had any advice to tell anybody, young people, survive your neighborhood first, because that's going to be the introduction to everybody else who doesn't know you. Your neighborhood knows you. The neighborhood knew my father. My neighborhood, my father would sit on the corner and check report cards. People knew my mother. They didn't stop just because they knew my mother, my father. Like, well, yeah, that's your mom and your father, but you still gotta go to, yeah, you still we still in the same place and we're in different arenas. And and it kind of brings us back to our first point with being, with individuality. Who are you as a person? Recognizing that as young as possible will help you navigate that because you're not going to be able to stop. I think what most people fail to realize is before we get out into the world, the closest people to you in your neighborhood are going to be the ones who are going to shape how you see the world. Your neighbors, your neighborhood, your parents, your household, all of that. That shapes who you are before you go walk out to wherever it is you're going. They're going to treat you a certain way before you have an encounter with the police department and a racist cop or a racist neighbor or whoever. Your neighborhood is going to teach you that first. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the neighborhood that I grew up in. There was a sense of community, but there are also, there were things that I had to go through in that community that I wouldn't have my child. I have a 3-year-old daughter now. She will never know that, but her father knows it, and it will start here first before she goes out into the world. When I'm talking to young boys who don't have a clue. The first examples, the first encounter is going to be with their family. They're going to be with their community. Before we get to cops, and because I can't account for every cop that's hired. I can't account for the sheriff. I can't account for the constables. I can't account for the judges and X, Y, Z. But your first interaction is going to be first your household, be it your parents, your family. Next is going to be your neighborhood, and you have to learn how to navigate through your neighborhood. You have to establish yourself as and I'll speak for myself. In my neighborhood, I didn't fit in to what the status quo was for that part of town at the time. My parents helped me because there was a certain standard that they expected when I walked, no matter what I walked through, no matter what happened outside their doors, when I came in, grades need to be X, Y, and Z. You need to conduct yourself. You can go to church X, Y, and Z, which was fine and it helped me, but they didn't introduce me to life outside of them. They coddled me. They protected me. My father did it. My mother did it. My family did it. But when I got outside of their arms, it's like, Mama, Dad, I don't understand why. And I would say just not even outside of my neighborhood, I had questions. Like, why am I looked at as I'm the smartest kid in the school? Why do I have to fight on the way there? Why? I don't understand it. And some of it I got from my parents, and some of it I got from my neighborhood. My neighborhood, be it what it was, there were some people my age, my counterparts, my peers, who's just like, hey man, we don't necessarily look up to you, but we admire what you got going on. And I think that's something that should be acknowledged. So we're gonna make sure that you know, I admire. I mean, well, not admire, but I see what you're doing, man, and maybe I want to do it too. But maybe my household is not like that. My upbringing is not like that. Your mom and daddy check your report card. My mom and daddy ain't. They just make sure that I ain't tearing up shit and make sure I'm in the house.
Um, I think that when you're talking about defending yourself, and I think it's like you said, like all of us have said, it's definitely multifaceted. What I think about is defending yourself as far as who you are as a person, standing up for your rights, and also defending yourself physically. If there's something that you want in this world, you're gonna have to fight for it. As Black people, if we want equal rights, we're gonna have to fight for it. If we want, to be treated better, we're gonna have to fight for it. Also, you're gonna have to defend yourself physically. Right now, I'm in the process of getting my license to carry license. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, there are a group of people who don't like Black people, and Black men are being killed. Black men are showing up hanging from trees. Have y'all seen the article and the video about the guy, the attempted lynching?
Mm-hmm.
They're pushing to a degree. Absolutely. And
This dude went out for 4th of July, and all of a sudden he finds himself pinned up against a tree, and all of a sudden this dude is talking about, hey, go get a noose. I can't even imagine the kind of fear that was going through that dude's brain at that particular point. That's insane, right? So, I mean, it's happening. Bottom line is that it's happening, and you have to protect yourself, you have to protect your family, and look out for your own best interest. Because unfortunately, in this country, we have people who have decided to take it upon themselves that they're going to deal with it in their own way, and I have to defend myself and my family. If I'm in the workplace and I hear something, I have to defend myself. If something pops off physically, I have to defend myself. That's the world that we live in. So, that's what I think when I think about defending myself, because, I'm a Black man, and, like I said, this is the world that we live in, and it's crazy.
well,
Like
let
I
me
said,
let me
I
let
can't
me
even
piggyback.
imagine the lynching situation. I can't even imagine that.
Well, let me piggyback off of what you just said. That's a fact, and not just that particular situation. There have been men who have died and lost their lives in the last 2 months from investigations, saying that this is not a suicide, even though they place it to be. This is a lynching.
Hey,
I've
hold on.
never.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
Go ahead.
We need to see what Ron think about it.
Sure. I think everybody's pretty much always said. I was sitting here trying to think about how I would go about this, and the only way I can really process this entire thing is just being able to defend your ideals. We all know who we desire to be. We all know what we would like to become, and the avenues we would like to travel. Of course, life throws obstacles at you, and you have to be able to combat those with whatever's in your toolbox, right? Sometimes those challenges are humans, and you have to be able to be armed with the necessary tools to get to where you want to be. My biggest thing is always going to be education. I think that, as Dub was talking earlier, talking about being able to sustain your neighborhood, because those people are going to know you the best. I think it's just about being able to defend who you want to be. We made, myself included, people always made fun of the church boy who grew up to learn how to play the piano and did this and blah, 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 blah. But in reality, I mean, that I commend them now for sticking to who they are, because it goes back to what we were saying in the individuality piece. You shift and you move. That's just not real. So I think that's the biggest thing. And of course, as BG said, man, being able to take the necessary steps to be able to defend yourself in terms of physicality is always going to be big. But I think the biggest thing you can do is understand where you want to be, what you want to do, and where you want to go, and then be able to defend that, because there will be people who will rob you of your dream. And if you're not
Well,
willing to step up for yourself, then it's going to be an issue.
well, let me say this. I think you guys are both correct. I think there are individual situations that would warrant your ideology to be put to the forefront first. And I'm misquoting him, but this is the ideology of Malcolm X. He says, man, if you put, we can have a civil discourse, but if you put your hands on me, on my family, I will put you in the dirt. So are we talking about having a difference of ideologies, opinions, religion, politics? That didn't warrant me to defend myself physically. Now, it may defend my integrity, my thoughts, and how I feel. And we can have a civil discourse. I am the believer, and you all know me well enough to know, and I have I wouldn't say a story history that I'm proud of, but if you touch my family, who I consider my family, not friends, not associates, I would probably be more inclined to do it for y'all than myself. We can have a civil discourse. We can agree to disagree. If you say all lives matter and Black lives don't matter, that's your opinion. You can have it. If you say, well, Black lives don't matter, you can have it. When you start to physically impose yourself on any person around me, I would say even outside of family and friends and just maybe another Black person who you're trying to physically impose yourself, I think it is my duty. I think it is my right. I think it is up to my reasonable doubt to say that I should protect not only myself, my child, my friends, my family, and other people who look like me, in a reasonable consumption of information. If I'm around, somebody's not messing with you, you decide you want to tie him to a tree. I think that I owe not only him, myself, and my family, because I would want somebody to do it if it were my child, myself, or my family, to defend their rights as a Black man and minority or just people in general. I owe them a duty to say I have to step in physically, whether you agree with me or not. And we can go back to the situation that happened with the guy, and I think his friends did the best thing possible. They recorded it. They intervened. I can't say that I would have been as boisterous in that situation. And this is why I am a firm believer that every Black man legally should have, Black man and woman should have their 2A amendments rights recognized. They should have it documented. They should be able to carry, and they should have the same rights as somebody who, I'll give you an example. So when I took my LPC,
Let me ask you a question. Who was filming at the time that dude was getting pinned to the tree? Who was that?
his
It was
friend, it was a white guy. It was 4 of them. It was 4 white guys and him. There was one that was filming. There were 2
look,
that
hey,
were
look, I
involved.
just want to say this because it's been burnt.
But
Ain't no motherfucking way. All 4 of us here,
I'm
we
gonna
scrapping until we die.
say,
Fuck that. No, let's keep
I'm
it
not
real.
scrubbing no more.
Because
I'm popping
nah,
everybody
shut up.
involved.
man, listen.
There's no way that the first
We went off the
thing that I'm
rail. We
thinking,
got off the rails and run. Reels back
Hey,
in. Reels
it's
back
all good. The beauty of this whole thing is the fact that you have to have this type of release in essence, because
in.
it's present day. Like, it's not, the one thing that 45 has allowed people to feel is that you have this audacity about yourself to do whatever, however, whenever you desire. So I can appreciate the authenticity that exudes out of you gentlemen, because at the end of the day, how we handle things is always going to be differently. And the one thing, you have people who will talk a lot about what they do, and then you have those who just find themselves in situations, and then next thing you know, there's an issue, and then there's
Okay.
it's being solved.
Which
Please, please let me get this point out. I got to get this point out because
well, Reese, before you get it out, I want you to go back to the discussion we had offline about the situation I had in Arlington about people getting to my door. This is the exact same situation. But go ahead.
okay. So for these young black men, if you got your core group of friends, you bet not let them get their ass whooped. You understand me? You better not let them get whooped. You jump in there and you defend your boy. You defend yourself and you defend your boys. If I seen that happen to BG or you Dub or you Run, it's over. I'm automatically in pit bull mode. And let me tell you something, dog. I'm quiet, but I have a quiet rage. And I grew up fighting. So when I see family and friends in distress, I'm going into straight attack mode. You worry about recording, I'm finna go whoop his ass.
So
I'm about to go pull.
And you know what? And you know what? That brings up a point, and I'll pass it to Ronald after because I know we got to close out. It's a different generation, right? Because I think recording is important. I think it was important for that chick. I think it was important for that lady to record George Floyd being killed because it brought light to that situation. It's important to do that, but I guess it's because I'm older. If I see that happening to a friend of mine, he's pinned up to a tree and people trying to beat him up and somebody talking about getting the news, my first reaction is not to pull out a phone and start to record. Like you had to just string up all four of us. You know what I'm saying? Like I just that's the mindset but like I said, I'm torn about it because I think sometimes at some points I think recording is important. I think it was important to record George Floyd getting killed. I think it was important to record Eric Garner getting killed. I think it was important to record Philando Castile getting shot in front of his girl and his daughter in order for people to see the horror that Black people go through. It's just that I don't know if in that moment, reaching for my phone and scrolling and pressing record is gonna be my first reaction. My first reaction is to try to dead the situation. It probably wouldn't even be a recording. But OG, I know we went
no. It's fine. It's fine. I think that one of the biggest things about this whole ordeal and really any of these things that are popping up, you saw the piece of the guys who were working at wherever they were working, they made a noose out of dough and all these different things. If you're that comfortable doing things of this nature, then you have to expect the ramifications that come along with it. You have to expect that somebody's going to be a little volatile in discussion or heated in battle with you. What I will say as we kind of go back to the point is this, as B, you said, you have to be able to defend yourself from a physicality standpoint. I think we have to equip ourselves from a mental standpoint as well, because intellectual warfare exists in the same way that straight out hand-to-hand combat does.
Can we separate the two, because I don't want to get it confused.
I don't think we have to separate the two. I think it all falls under the umbrella.
I think you do, because I don't want kids to think that in a moment of having to react physically, there should be principles inside of you before those conversations or before those actions happen. I've been in situations per se by myself.
Me too.
I think that you have to.
Hell, I got jumped at going to B house walking.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as a grown man. I've gone to jail.
But we're not talking about.
Well, I'm not. Let me be clear. I'm not discounting what you're saying. What I'm saying is, okay, so I have 3 people on my live including myself. When it comes to y'all three, I have to be okay with whatever decision that I make behind y'all safety because Ron, Mason is my nephew, Maddie is my niece, Reese, you're my brother, BG, you're my brother, you know, BJ is my nephew, Callie's my niece, but I have a daughter in Ryan, and I have to be conscious of that. But I can't. It wouldn't sit with me well if something happened to all three of you, and I didn't react, and something happened to myself that took something away from my daughter. And I trust all of you, and even Joe, who's not on the call, who's his her godfather, that y'all know my intentions, you know my heart. I'm never gonna invoke any violence unnecessarily. If it is, it'll be on me. But it's all for us to make it home. But if I have to, and somehow I'm on the latter end, I trust all of you.
Look here, cuz I'm riding. I'm riding.
But I'm
You ain't
saying
got nothing to worry
that's the
about if I'm with
decision that
you.
you have to
I'm
make
riding.
before. It's easy to say it, but it's hard to say it when I don't have any doubt, but I'm just saying, like, when it comes to that
Action.
part, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've gone to jail I've literally been locked up and spent a whole bunch of money over a weekend over what I felt and what I believed in. And it could have cost me my life. If he decided he wanted to shoot me, he could have. But I also have the legacy of my daughter that I may be robbing of her and her daddy, you know what I'm saying? But I made that vow to you guys, and I know that if she loses me, she'll gain 3 more. And I think that's what's being lost in this whole, all right, well, yeah, there's a mental aspect, but then what are you gonna do if somebody breaks into your door, Ron, right now, and I'm there, and you don't have a firearm, and I got one? Am I gonna say, well, this is your house, and you gotta no? I'm gonna defend you. Reese the same way, BG the same way.
So,
I've done it on smaller scales with all of you guys for the most part, but now I also have a daughter who looks at me and says, "Daddy, are you gonna protect me too?"
well, so once
Well,
again, I think I don't see a separation of the two, to be completely honest. Sure, you make the point that there has to be principles in play and you have to think about all these different things. Sure, that's the beauty of being able to think about those things and having the opportunity to process very quickly and so forth, so on. But I think that it all falls under the same umbrella, whether you're defending your ideals, your individuality, um, your property, your space, your family, so forth, so on. I think that all goes back to the umbrella of defending yourself as a black man in this society.
let me make this point too also. Like, y'all know I'm ride or die. Y'all already know what it is. But I do want to say this though. If you can diffuse the situation or walk away from it, do it. But if you are like that man who was about to get strung up on a tree, who was held down, I'm coming in full. I'm not even thinking. I'm already about it. So to me, the dude recording, okay, you say it was 4 guys. The dude recording, great, you're doing a good job. What the hell are those other 3 guys
What
doing? You
sacrifices
scared?
are you willing to make for
You not
somebody?
my boy if you scared I'm about to lose my life. You are not my boy if you don't come to my aid. Don't talk to me after this. If we survive, don't talk to me
I
because
feel I
you just
feel you,
showed me
bro.
who you are.
I
All
feel
right.
you, bro.
I think,
What you
like I
willing to
said,
make?
to close this out, I think what we're talking about is a life on the line situation, which doesn't happen often, rather than just a simple situation that can be diffused and you can walk away from it, right?
Sometimes.
They were talking about hanging that man from a tree and they were pinning him down. There was about to be death. That was, I mean,
That's a split second conversation though. Like it could have went to a disagreement. Oh, we're gonna hang him. You know what I'm saying? Like these, I've been in situations to where it's been like, this is petty until it escalates to something else. How are you gonna react? How are you gonna react? What are you willing to sacrifice? Like I said, I posted individual on my Facebook page. Toby, I hope you make it home. Me and Carlos, who are, you know, that's my guy, that's my heart. I talked to his mother, and she told me this. She says, "Hey, y'all just make sure each of y'all, myself and him, y'all make it home." And that's been 2003. And we were, you know, we doing stuff that's putting ourselves in compromising positions. But now the tables are turned. So what do you do if Ron is being strung up on a tree?
I'm finna go. What do you mean? What I'm finna do?
I'll put it to you like this: Ron is being strung up on a tree, and
Why
you got
I gotta be on the tree?
okay. I put
I'm playing, man. I'm playing.
I put myself in the tree. I'm being put on the tree, and you got your firearm. Reese, you got your firearm. But guess what? There may be some legal ramifications from behind it.
Well, okay. Ron got it on camera. So
What if it's not though?
Well, I mean, the situations are always going
then
to.
I'll deal with it.
As B said, we're lucky enough that we're in a time in which people are beginning to record outlandish behaviors. And even, let me also go the other route with that. You're also living in a time in which ignorant people are also willing to record themselves doing outlandish things and behaviors and so forth, so on. So the era of the recording is just what it is, right? And we're thankful that that person had the presence of mind to record it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here talking about it, and it'd be just another news story of a black man hanging from a tree without the faces to go along with it. I think that's why we fall into the lines of having dangerous stories that bring about a ball of emotion. Everybody has friends who are not black, right? And whether they're comfortable having these conversations or whether they're not, you can tell by how they act if they're the type of person that will fall in line with the foolishness or actually say something about it. For the people who are willing to fall in line with foolishness and ignorance, I'm not even gonna call it foolishness, blatant ignorance, then be who you are. But understand that if you find yourself in a moment where there are multiple people who won't tolerate that, you're gonna have a heavy price to pay, whatever that may look like. Somebody may have a gun. Somebody just may have a whole pair of hands. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be what it is. So, you know, all in all.
Whole pair. Now, let me make this point. In the situation where one of my brother's life is on the line, with myself, if I allowed injury to befall either one of y'all in my presence, I would not be able to live with myself knowing that I could have done something.
Absolutely.
And that's really what it boils down to.
Absolutely.
If I see any of y'all boys in distress to a point where, man, it don't have to be, look, I'm just riding.
I'm crashing. I'm gonna have to crash.
Northside 4-4, I'm riding.
I think you guys are intelligent. Y'all know my heart enough to know that my heart is my daughter. You know, that's we don't have a relationship, we have a bond. Me and my child have a bond. Like, no, nah, I've never been that. And this is kind of why I say to myself, I don't want to incite violence on nobody.
We spent a lot of time on it. What we got, OG? Is that the last point?
That's the last point for the day, man. It's the last point for the day. Hey, I mean, we talked about 4 big points.
What are you willing to risk for your brother? And I think this kind of what it come down to.
So we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that because that's a cliffhanger. We'll leave it at that. Don't table it.
What are you willing to?
We definitely need to have more in-depth conversation about it.
Absolutely.
We all have a broad perspective on it. there's the mental aspect and the physical aspect, and there's a lot more to delve into. So we're going to table that. Just know, young black man, defend yourself and to defend the people that you love at all costs.
We talked about individuality, being an individual. We talked about being honest with yourself and others. We also spoke about what was the third point? The seeking mental health. Had healthy conversation there, and then of course the very last one, defending yourself. All these things are extremely important for the black man to take care of himself. If he fails to do that, then he's not able to help the next man and or child. I personally want to leave you with a quick food for thought. While there are a bevy of rules we all have to follow, I think that we cannot overlook the necessity of creating a relationship with God. We as a black culture know the importance of having that relationship with God and having him at the center of our core. It is something that I hold dearly to myself. As alluded to earlier, when you find yourself in situations, yes, you may want to go seek mental health. You may have buddies like I do, these three gentlemen here, who you can call at any given time. But I've also been taught in my lifestyle that you pray until something happens. And that's just something that we have to make certain that is a continuous step for each generation that passes along. As it was said at the beginning of the podcast, we're not experts, but we believe in the power of conversation. If you have feedback or any comments, you can find us on all social media platforms. Just find the username called Watch Conversations. All feedback is welcomed and appreciated. We simply want to be a part of change going forward. As my brothers discuss, what are you willing to do for your brother? We'll be a part of the future conversations. In the next episode, we'll dissect 3 more rules that are essential to the essence of being black men. Stay tuned so that you can join the dialogue to further the